The dust tasted like regret and iron. Silas barely registered it, his gaze fixed on the flicker of movement beyond the crumbling adobe wall. A dog, small and mangy, darted across the yard, its ribs showing beneath patchy fur. He's seen worse. He's been course. He's been tracking the man for 3 days, ever since the report came in from Winslow. Robbery, a brawl, a dead stockkeeper. The description fit Jedediah Jed Thorne like a worn saddle. Thorne was McKellar by trade. He was a desperate man, driven to it by circumstance and a string of bad luck. Silas knew the type. He'd been one himself once. Upper Canyon was quiet these days. The boom having busted a few years back. The railroad hadn't brought the promised prosperity. Just more transient faces and empty promises. It was a place where a man could lose himself or find himself depending on the hand he was dealt. Silas Thorne would choose the latter. He's been a lawman for 5 years, ever since leaving behind a life he no longer recognized. The guilt still clung to him, a constant reminder of his past. Bringing Thorne in wouldn't erase it, but it might offer a sliver of redemption. He pushed himself to his feet, his knees protesting with a familiar aid. The sun beat down mercilessly, baking the earth and shimmering the air. He adjusted his hat, shielding his eyes, and stepped out into the yard. The house was small, a single room with a lean-to kitchen. A rusted-out water trough sat near the front, bone dry. A few scraggly chickens pecked at the dust. The air smelled of despair and wood smoke. A woman's voice, low and weary, drifted from within. "He ain't here, mister. Left 3 days ago." Silas stopped, his hand instinctively moving to the worn handle of his cold peacemaker. He didn't bother identifying himself. "You expect him back?" The woman didn't turn. She was thin, her face etched with hardship. Her eyes, though, were sharp and watchful. "Don't know. He's a restless man. He's wanted for robbery and assault." She finally turned, her gaze unwavering. "Jed ain't a bad man, just hard-pressed." Silas studied her, searching for a lie. He found only weariness. "What's your name?" "Martha." Martha, did Jed mention where he was going? She hesitated. "East," said he heard there was work at the Silver Creek mine. Silver Creek, that was deep into Apache territory. A foolish destination for a man on the run. "He's headed into trouble." Martha shrugged, a gesture that spoke volumes about her resignation. "He always is." She turned back into the house, disappearing into the gloom. Silas remained, staring at the empty yard. The dog, emboldened by his presence, crept closer, sniffing at his boots. He tossed her a scrap of dried meat he's been saving. It devoured it in seconds. He knew Thorne. He knew the desperation that drove a man to break the law. He also knew the law had to be upheld. But there was weariness in him, a reluctance to add another name to the ledger of broken lives. He turned and started walking, heading east toward Silver Creek. The sun felt hotter than before, the landscape more desolate. He knew he was walking into a situation far more complicated than a simple robbery. He also knew he couldn't turn back. He rode for 2 days, following the faint tracks left by Thorne's horse. The land grew harsher, the vegetation sparser. The air grew heavy with the scent of pine and the threat of danger. He hadn't seen another soul. He found Thorne near a small stream, tending to a crippled horse. Thorne didn't look surprised to see him. He's grown a scraggy beard, his face leaner, more hardened. "Silas," Thorne said, his voice flat. "Didn't expect to find you out here. Heard you were heading this way. Running is tiring." Thorne didn't offer his hand. "You're heading into Apache territory. That's foolish, even for you. Maybe I'm looking for something more than work." Thorne glanced toward the distant mountains, his eyes filled with a strange mix of defiance and despair. "What's that?" "Redemption, Silas. You of all people should understand." Silas remembered his own past, the choices he's made, the lives he's ruined. He's tried to bury it, to atone for it through upholding the law. But the past always found a way to resurface. "You know the consequences, Jed." "I do, but maybe a fight with the Apaches is a better way to pay my dues than rotting in a jail cell." Suddenly, a war cry split the silence. A band of Apache warriors, painted for war, emerged from the trees, their arrows notched and ready. They surrounded them, cutting off any chance of escape. "Looks like your chance came sooner than expected," Silas said, his hand instinctively moving to his gun. Thorne grinned, a flicker of grim satisfaction in his eyes. "Looks like it." The fight was brutal and swift. The Apaches were skilled warriors, familiar with the terrain. Silas and Thorne fought back to back, their guns blazing. The air filled with the whoosh of arrows and the crack of gunfire. Silas managed to take down 2 warriors, but he was wounded in the shoulder. Thorne fought, with a desperate ferocity fueled by a mixture of desperation and defiance. He took down 3 more, but he too was wounded, a gash across his arm. As the fight raged, Silas noticed something strange. The Apache warriors weren't attacking with their usual ferocity. They were almost reluctant. Their leader, a tall, imposing figure with a feathered headdress, seemed to be holding them back. The leader raised his hand, silencing the warriors. He stepped forward, his eyes fixed on Silas. "You are Silas," the leader said, his voice surprisingly calm. Silas felt a chill run down his spine. "How did this man know his name?" "We have been expecting you," the leader continued. "Your arrival has been foretold." "What do you mean?" Silas asked, his hand tightening around his gun. "The spirits have spoken. They say you are the key to saving our people." Silas stared at the leader, his mind reeling. Saving the Apache people. What could he, a broken lawman from Arizona, possibly do to save a nation? Thorne, leaning heavily on his horse, let out a harsh laugh. "Spirits? What nonsense is this?" The leader ignored Thorne. His eyes remained fixed on Silas. "Our people are dying. Not from war, not from starvation, but from a sickness that steals their strength and clouds their minds. The healers have tried everything, but nothing works. And you think I can help?" Silas asked, feeling a wave of disbelief wash over him. "The spirits say you possess a knowledge, a skill that can heal our people, a knowledge that lies dormant within you. I'm a lawman, not a doctor. The spirits do not lie. You have been chosen." The leader gestured towards a young woman, frail and weak, lying on a makeshift bed. "She is our last hope." Silas looked at the woman. He saw not just suffering, but a glimmer of hope, a silent plea for help. He felt a strange stirring within him, a sense of obligation, a feeling that he couldn't turn away. He remembered his own past, the desperation that had driven him to break the law. He's been trying to atone for it, but he's never felt like he's truly made a difference. Perhaps this was his chance to finally do something worthwhile, to finally find redemption. He stepped forward, leaving his gun behind. "What do you want me to do?" The leader smiled, a genuine, hopeful smile. "The spirits will guide you." As Silas knelt beside the sick woman, he felt a warmth spread through him, a feeling he hadn't felt in years. He didn't know what he was doing, but he knew he had to try. He closed his eyes and focused on the feeling, the warmth, the hope. And as he did, a memory surfaced. A memory of his mother, a woman he barely remembered, a woman who had been a healer in her own right. He remembered her teaching him about herbs, about remedies, about the power of the human body to heal itself. He opened his eyes and began to work, using the knowledge he's forgotten, the skills he's buried deep within his subconscious. He mixed herbs, applied poultices, chanted ancient remedies. He didn't know if it would work, but he had to believe it would. He had to believe in the power of hope, the power of redemption. As the sun set, casting long shadows across the desert, the sick woman stirred. She opened her eyes and looked at Silas. "You've healed me," she whispered. Silas smiled, a genuine, hopeful smile. He's finally found his redemption. He's finally found his purpose. The Apache leader approached, his eyes filled with gratitude. "You have saved our people. You are a true friend to the Apache nation." Thorne, leaning against a nearby tree, watched the scene unfold, a mixture of awe and envy in his eyes. He's never felt such a profound sense of peace. Suddenly, a distant cry pierced the air. A rider, silhouetted against the setting sun, galloped toward them. "Silas!" the rider shouted. "The Silver Creek mine are overrun. Soldiers and outlaws. A massacre." Silas felt a chill run down his spine. Silver Creek. Thorne was headed that way. He looked at Thorne, his eyes filled with a mixture of concern and dread. "Looks like your running days aren't over yet," Silas said, his voice barely a whisper. Thorne grinned, a flicker of defiance in his eyes. "Guess I'm needed elsewhere." He mounted his horse and turned to leave. "Where are you going?" Silas asked. "To finish what I started." Thorne spurred his horse and out toward the distant mountains, disappearing into the gathering darkness. Silas watched him go, knowing that he was riding toward danger, toward an uncertain fate. He also knew that he couldn't follow. He had a debt to repay to the Apache people, a promise to keep. He looked back at the Apache village, at the faces of the people he's helped. He knew that his journey was far from over. He had a lot of work to do. He looked towards the mountains where Jed Thorne disappeared. He knew he would likely see him again. He was, after all, still running.